everybody. This is the February 13th.
Yeah.
13th.
Agenda?
Yep, there. Public safety meeting. And what I'd like to do today, we're going to go put it in the time machine and go back a little bit. We'll go around the table. I'm going to ask Mr. Dixon to speak first, if that's okay. And then we'll go around. Rob, because he's second, we'll go around. And then you can get a second bite of the apple if you want to comment on everybody else's comments or information, just so everybody has an opportunity to be heard. So, Fran, you can join us, Fran. That would be great. I know these chairs are not great, and they're not great for your back and sitting on chairs. My feet don't touch the ground, exactly. I have that problem too. Fran, thank you for the reports. We've been getting them, and I've been comparing them to the Lower Merion because they have theirs on their website, so you can kind of find out, dig in and find out what fire information is going on. And I think I think everybody here pretty much has heard that somewhere between 70 to 80% of the fire calls are outside of the borough, right? Somewhere. It depends on who you believe.
No.
Yeah, we hear that, right?
I think last year we were at 73, maybe.
Yeah, so somewhere between.
Yeah.
So that we don't generally ask Lower Merion to support us financially or your house financially in that regard, because there's always been sort of this understanding about police services and fire services. But as we move away from maybe depending so much on Lower Merion for police services, what we'd like maybe to have this discussion briefly today is what it looks like from your side. What's the cost to bring those trucks out, to call your guys here? How many times? And you don't know off the top of your head, and I'm not expecting you to know. No. You have plenty of time. We know that Lower Merion did an assessment about those pieces and equipment pieces and all that kind of stuff, and we have that part of that report. We didn't participate in it. Our Arbor Fire company did not participate in that assessment, but I think there's probably some stuff that you could glean out of that, so I'll send it to you. You probably have it, though, if you don't have it. Some estimate of what those costs are and how that really plays out with the guys' time, the women's time who are volunteering, and how that plays out during the day, during the month, and how many calls you're going out to, and from a financial perspective. But we can dig more into it after Mr. Metric maybe and I hammer out like what we're looking for.
Well, as you said, probably about 7 in 10 of our calls are in the Lower Merion. The Township's department, which we are a member company of, is actually transitioning and has been over the past few years from the past system to what we're using now. What happened in the past was if there was a bad fire in Narberth, either in the borough or the Narberth's first in district, the assist company would be called, which in our case was usually Penway and Ardmore or Kinwood.
Right.
And then if it was a really bad fire, then you would start to go down the line and go Ardmore, Belmont Hills. They're transitioning to a new system now because the problem is if there's a bad fire in Kinwood, all the companies in the lower end are at the bad fire and there's no other coverage. Protection in the lower end. Or if Bryn Mawr has a bad fire, correspondingly, everybody in the upper end is out. So what we're doing now and why we're running more assist calls than we had in the past is that any kind of fire that has the potential on dispatch to be a serious fire, something that's reported as the building is on fire or something serious like that, they're taking a truck from each company so that the company itself stays in service. We send a piece of apparatus and a finite number of firefighters to that incident, but we stay intact to cover our district. So that has driven up the number of both the number of calls and the number of assists that we run. If you want me to read my report,
I'd love you to
see that. We responded to 32 last month, 5 in the borough, 27 in Lower Merion, and we assisted Penwyn, Belmont Hills, and Ardmore once. Penwyn, Belmont Hills, and Bryn Mawr once, Ardmore twice, and Kinwood 3 times. That is completely an outgrowth of this change of system.
Is that included in the 32 calls? The assists?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We were assisted by every company in the township. Penwyn, Belmont Hills, Bryn Mawr, Gladwin, Ardmore, Kinwood. Our significant calls on the 9th alarm 9 on the 12th. We assisted Ardmore on a working fire on School Lane with our ladder. We're in service for about an hour. On the 17th, again, alarm 17 on the 20th. 109 Iona in the borough, we had a dwelling fire. There was a working fire in the basement that our first engine was able to control and extinguish with a booster line. The cause was determined to be a fireplace clean out. We were in service about 2 hours. We had every company in Lower Merion at the scene.
That's significant.
On the 26th, which was alarm 25, we assisted Kinwood on a dwelling at 148 Union. An incendiary device had been thrown on the porch and was extinguished by Kinwood's first in engine, and we were in service down there for about 30 minutes, and that had a potential to be catastrophic, obviously. 3 drills, 34 members, 6 hours of training. We were in service for about 14 hours. The new engine is now in service, but it is not running first out. It will be running first out, we hope, by the end of February.
Okay.
So what you're talking about with running outside of Lower Merion is true.
Yeah.
But as I said, this new system is contributing to that, because now if Bryn Mawr gets dispatched for a house fire, we're probably sending 1 truck. Before, that would never happen.
Right. So
We would have gone to Bryn Mawr
yeah, we're going to go around some.
not even once a year.
So I guess what and even if this is an adjustment to, I don't know what the long-term goal is with this particular plan, but if you give us some sort of estimate over time, maybe in the next couple of months, of what the dollar amount is to take that truck. You don't have to,
Right.
but there are some parameters, and we'll discuss that and maybe get some idea of what the cost is to take those trucks out. Not just the assist, and I'm not saying this is not to say we're not going to participate in that plan. This is just to have some sense of what it costs the house to participate at this level. That's all I'm asking for. Internal document.
The only thing, it would be hard, I guess you'd have to take fuel costs into, and wear and tear, and it all comes down to how long you're in service at each call.
Yeah, thank you, Fran.
Yesterday, somebody had their kids home from school, decided it would be a great day to start a fire in their fireplace. Unfortunately, they hadn't had their chimney serviced, and all the smoke backed up into their home.
Right.
So we had to go extinguish the fire and remove the debris out of the fireplace before
Yeah.
everybody in the house got killed by the smoke. So calls like that, sometimes some calls, we went out last night, we were probably in service less than 5 minutes. There was somebody cooking dinner. They set their alarm off before we could get there. They called back and said, there's no need for the fire department. We've opened the window, everything's okay. And we turned around and came back. How to estimate, I don't know what we use, a quart of gas just to start the truck.
No,
I don't know how to.
Maybe we don't have to drill down to that level, but I think we should have like maybe a 30,000, 15,000 foot, level of information. Rob, anything?
Well, you could couldn't you do it by service hours?
Yeah.
Just, even if you couldn't do the fuel.
Well, we were in service for about 14 hours.
Right.
But we had a couple serious calls, and the most serious call we had this month was in the borough.
Right. Okay. Cindy, your question?
So my question is, Fran, and I know you said this, but can you give the hours of how many assist hours did we give versus how many assist hours did we require for the borough? Because I'm thinking of it more of the kind of percentage of people's time, given the fact that I'm assuming we're the smallest location, comparing Narberth to Bala or Penwood. So
not fire district.
Not fire district.
Okay.
Because we do go out into Lower Merion, over to Shortridge. You used to.
Penn Valley, Shortridge, and Merion.
Okay. Do you know offhand what's the what's the ratio of, again, assists that we gave versus assists that we got?
Well, we respond more, if you're talking about just the borough, we respond more
So that's a
to than from, because obviously the
okay.
borough is a compact region.
Right.
So, we're thankful that we haven't had a lot of serious fires in the borough.
So it's really not, to your point, that you don't really need to drill down 12 cents a mile, but it's more of looking at the people power of are we burning, that's bad, really bad, are we exhausting our volunteers?
Right. And what is that? And how does that play out across, the fire companies, the unified fire companies across Lower Merion? No, but what does that really look like? And that's all we're looking for, is just information. So hang on 1 second, Fran. I'm sorry, Mr. Metric. Any questions?
No, I think that thinking through, putting a dollar value on the transactions will be really helpful for us going forward. Like in my mind, I'm already starting to think about there's operational costs
Yep.
that dollars we're going to use annually, and then there's some capital costs. We're not going to.
Right, that's true too.
You're not going to charge. You're going to charge some fraction of the facility and the capital cost to each transaction you have, but you're going to do it over a really long period of time.
Right.
I can help with that. I can help with that process to figure out
That's fine.
what the
Great.
transactions
Good,
look
we're
like.
going around, we're good, okay. Matt, anything? Mayor? John, you're next, sorry.
No.
Mayor's next, sorry, she's just gonna. add her
no,
comments.
no.
Fran, do you find that there's any benefit to attending these calls, such as extra experience you wouldn't have had an opportunity to do? Is there any benefit?
Yeah, well, there's every call should be a learning experience.
Right.
I understand the need in budgetary areas to try and understand all this, but there's also kind of a, like you said, like a 30,000.
Yeah,
When you need people, when you need help, you need it.
sure.
And I don't know that you can put.
Oh, no.
You know
That's
what I
not
mean?
what we're looking to do.
If there's a serious fire in the center of town and 3 or 4 of the businesses get going, we need everybody from Lower
Fran, if
Merion.
there's a serious fire in Kinwood, I want all
Right.
hands on deck because
Right, no,
they're
I
human
understand
beings
that.
and property.
Yeah.
I don't care about,
There's a
go.
more, yeah,
Go.
there's a more,
Right.
there's
Right.
kind of a, like with the police, it's hard to
Yeah.
pinpoint
Right.
that when you need help, you need help.
No, and I'm with you 100%. And I'm glad that
Right.
that there is that symbiosis working
Right.
together with
Oh, yeah.
Lower Merion. That's
It's
really
a
important.
100-plus-year-old
Lower Merion, Narberth,
relationship.
and the school district have to learn to start working together. I mean, we are, but we've come a long way
Right.
since when I first moved here. Since you grew up here.
The fire department has always worked.
Yeah.
Look, Narberth has always been a member company of the Lower Merion Fire Department, even though we are a separate municipality.
Yeah.
We've always been that since back before my grandfather was running here. And we have always run essentially the way we're running now, which is when someone needs an assist, everyone available will go to help.
Right.
And that's kind of the basis of the whole department.
Right.
But part of what you brought up is something that I wanted to bring up, which is recruitment of new members, which is something that Lower Merion got a substantial grant, which we are benefiting from because we participated in their process of getting the grant, their application. And our participation as a separate municipality helps them get these grants. We're getting all new self-contained breathing apparatus with a lot of financial assistance from a grant that the township got, which we participated in,
Great.
and that helped.
Yeah. Sure.
We're getting all new, up-to-date, computerized. They're probably too fancy for me to wear anymore. But they got a big grant for recruiting new members. One of the tools they use in recruitment is a Firefighter Tax Credit. If you are an active firefighter with the Lower Merion Township Fire Department and you own a home in Lower Merion Township, you get a discount on your township property taxes, not your tax bill as a whole,
Right.
not your school taxes, just the township portion of the tax bill. I know the borough, from speaking with Aaron, the borough is working on that. Right now, we don't have it in the borough, and our members who live in Lower Merion who are active with Narberth are not able to participate because Lower Merion will not extend it to Narberth Fire Company until the borough passes a reciprocal
Sure.
agreement. So as we kind of step up our efforts to recruit more members, and we take members from anywhere in our first in district. We don't try not to poach
Sure.
other people's areas, as we hope other people don't poach ours.
Right.
But the more new members we could get from within the borough, because obviously in the time of an emergency,
Yeah.
we'd like people who are close to be able to come and get on the apparatus and
Sure.
respond to the calls.
Sure.
So I would just urge the council to pass that piece of legislation, because we hope that will help recruit and also retain members who are already running. Anything that can help with recruiting and retaining volunteers would be a big
So what I'd like to
boost.
say about that, we've been working on that for about 2 years, and the reality, we have hit some bumps. Some of those bumps have come from Mr. Walco's side, some of them have come from the percentage. We're not Lower Merion, so we've been wrestling with the 20% that Lower Merion is able to offer versus what the borough is able to offer. So I think it's over in Finance Administration currently, and they're looking at that to recommend a percentage of what we could offer and what the dollars would translate to, and some of the parameters around what we're trying to provide, obviously, so we can recruit without, of course, too many giveaways, because
Well, I
we
think
have
there are
budget
11.
constraints.
There were 11 members who would qualify that
Perhaps.
live in the borough.
Perhaps.
In
Yeah.
the borough this year.
Perhaps.
I have a question about
Well,
that too.
I don't want to get into it, but
No,
Mr.
no.
Walco has made his recommendation. I don't want to.
No. I mean, that's the number of firefighters
Yes.
who would
And then
qualify. There
I-
isn't. It's not 12 and it's not
Right.
10. It's 11.
Right. And, I read about this a year ago. So this isn't even a Lower Merion thing. This is a national movement.
Oh yeah.
So I guess my one question, I would love to see that Lower Merion document, if we could get that.
I believe
It's on the SharePoint.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen that, so I will try to find that. And additionally,
It was in the
I think it's a recruitment tool, but I also hope that it's used to retain.
Yeah.
We gotta move
Because
on.
there is an institutional knowledge that comes with folks that have done this for X
Sure.
amount of years, where I don't want to just say
100%.
we're using it as a recruitment tool, but all of you who have given decades of time and hold a tremendous amount of knowledge, it should also be a tool to retain folks.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
what we try. That's what we strive to do in every training session that we have, is to move that institutional knowledge into the newer members and hope that it
Yeah.
all goes down the line.
Absolutely.
That's where we got it. The people who are in these positions now, we got it from the people who came before us, and they got it from the people who came before them.
Absolutely.
And we are actively and strenuously working to continue that.
I am really looking forward to having this discussion.
I'm sorry,
I think it's
the mayor
hold
has-
on.
oh, sorry,
Okay, she
sorry,
can
sorry,
hold on
sorry,
to finish the
sorry,
sentence.
sorry,
I look
sorry.
forward to really looking at this because I think it's imperative. Absolutely imperative. And this is a national conversation,
Well, as
not
I-
just a local one.
We got 100%.
And I think,
most-
Rob, you were there to see, I had no idea
The
that our
fire-
volunteers
the drill.
went on Wednesday nights. I had no idea the
Well,
amount
we
of
drill
time.
3 times a week, 3 times a month.
I had no
Yeah,
idea.
no,
We
that was
had
very
it.
impressive.
Yeah.
Drill
I was
last
there as
month.
well. It was
Yeah.
very impressive. Fran, just so you have an open audience here, the people watching on video, tell us what the qualifications are to become a volunteer firefighter. Good one.
Well, you have to fill out an application and get a note from your doctor that says that you are physically able.
What age?
Anything over 16. You have a junior program from 16 to 18. Anything over 18 is qualified for fully active status. There are regulations from the state about junior firefighters 16 to 18, what they're allowed to do, the hours they're allowed to run, et cetera, that we obviously follow. And we train you in-house. We send you to Montgomery County Fire School. There's a township-wide drill tonight on building construction that a lot of the members are going to. All the township has training programs during the year that all the 7 companies participate in. As a member company, we have access to their drill tower down at the cable complex on Woodbine Avenue, which is a fantastic facility, and it's very much a positive for recruiting to be able to take people down there and show them and get especially young people interested in joining this. And I believe the percentage is 70 or 80% of the population of the United States is covered by volunteer firefighters. And some say it's a dying profession because people don't volunteer at the rate that they used to.
Right, sure.
And we're certainly fighting against that, but ranks have thinned and new members are welcome and very important to us.
There you go, Norbert. You have an opportunity to volunteer at the fire department, and please take action if you can volunteer. Chief Gallagher, do you have anything on this issue?
No.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move ahead. We have...
Thank you.
Thank you, Fran, so very much. We're going to let... what do we have? Chief Gallagher, we have the reports. No, we don't have the reports. They'll come at a later time in the month. Is that right?
Yeah, we're talking, the ComStat report is always available by the Business Council meeting, and that'll be available ahead of the meeting on Wednesday, the 20th.
Right.
In the meantime, status of command, there's no change to personnel. Since our last meeting in January of 2019, no change to equipment, no change to our fleet management whatsoever, but our ComStat report will be available. The only thing that I would like to discuss today is the request to amend the CIP. However, at whatever point on the agenda you would like to discuss that. The only update to status of command that I would like to add is that there was a meeting on Wednesday, January the 30th with leadership from the Lower Merion Police Department, myself and Superintendent McGrath. And the command staff met for about an hour. And a half. One of the biggest topics of discussion was our revised memo of understanding, our cooperation agreement, which will be good for 5 years. We provided a lot of revisions to make sure that Narberth's interests were protected. Myself and the mayor met and discussed about it. In addition to that, I gave her a copy of the proposed MOU that we have. We protect our interest a little bit more when it comes to media releases. Our media releases area was a little bit restricted. Now it's a little bit more broadened out, and it covers a little more ground that I wanted covered in terms of giving us ownership of a lot of different things. However, the meeting was very productive. I was under the understanding from Superintendent McGrath, which was very informative, very helpful, that a lot of the information that is coming from post-arraignment on media releases in our community is coming from court. So in other words, a right to know, they're getting it from the criminal complaint. It's not really coming from Lower Merion, predominantly Narberth. Our releases are very controlled. Those releases to the media come directly from me. I'm kind of vanilla-based, very, very vague until after the arraignment is over. I'm very reluctant to give a lot of details out until after a preliminary hearing is held on whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony. However, the meeting was very productive, very informative. We certainly have a great partnership with them. As a matter of fact, one of the things we discussed was an exercise that we did in response to a radio call. It was an opportunity for us to work together on January 9th when we had a lockdown at St. Margaret's School for about 2 hours regarding a trespasser, and we worked hand in hand, and it was very good. In addition to that, we talked about another training opportunity that was available to us for mental health intervention. We found that there was only one officer from Narberth, Officer Kelly Lynn, that received that intervention. Now we're going to train the other officers in mental health intervention, and we have them scheduled. Officer Lynn already has the other officer scheduled, so we're moving forward with that as well.
Is that the CIT training?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Wonderful.
That's good news.
And on January the 30th, we sent Officer Dan Dutton to go down and do extensive active shooter training in Delaware County for a 4-hour period.
Great. Thank you very much.
Great.
And thank the officers. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. The
And Lower Merion.
officers have been doing a tremendous job. As you know, we now have the additional logs that are now set up through the community at our daycares, our learning centers, our child care facilities, our schools. They go out there, they sign those logs, they check in on the staff, they make sure that there's a certain, a police presence around these areas. In addition to our banks, our drugstore, as well as our state store. We now have a policy with Foot Patrol. That directive has been revised, sent out to everybody, where now the officers have a minimum mandatory requirement on their day shift and their night shift to sign a specified number of hours. And that's very fleshed out, where it actually covers weekends and holidays as well.
Great.
So there's a certain performance expectation, and the officers have been doing a tremendous job balancing their time and meeting those expectations that are needed for checks.
Terrific. Rob, you have anything?
Well, the MOU, so we can review that with you?
Yes,
just to see.
I have that in draft form with the edits provided by the borough, which I gave to the mayor, so I could share that with the Public Safety Committee.
Has it gone to John Walco, or has it gone to anybody on the legal side to take a look?
Not yet.
Not yet. No, it's only going to the mayor so far.
It's preliminary.
Yeah, but when it's signed and when it's authorized, it has to be signed by myself, the borough manager, Mr. Metrick, as well as the township supervisor and the superintendent of police for Lower Merion.
That's right. Thank
Okay,
you.
it was
John.
my understanding,
So,
it's just a preliminary.
yeah. So yes, you'll get a copy, and yes, you'll be able to review it.
Okay, good.
Cindy, do you have anything? Fran, anything on
No.
this issue? Sean? Matt?
I just want to say I continue to receive thanks from members of the community who randomly just stop by or stop me on the street, noting the increase in police presence. They are noticing it and they are appreciating it, and I just wanted to convey their appreciation.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll pass that word on to the officers.
Terrific. Let's move on. Now, there's a request from Chief Gallagher regarding the CIP. Are we ready for this one, Sean? Okay, great. Sorry, I didn't mean to skip ahead or throw a wrench in your plan. Hopefully you all have taken a look at that, and I think the Chief has provided that email to us. And obviously this is necessary equipment, and obviously this is, you know, as long as quality is not is not deleted by the price point. So there are two different prices we've been given to replace the, excuse me, I'm sorry, the vests that the officers wear. Two different price points. One's at $6,175, and then ultimately it would be $791. The second scenario, as presented by the chief, is a lower priced item. I'll leave that to Mr. Metric to be able to sort of figure out what we can in the dollar amount in that CIP. I think the larger question speaks to a full assessment of equipment and a full understanding. We understand that we're playing whack-a-mole a little bit, catch up, because we didn't do, you know, a full assessment of all the equipment, and because we had other things to address. Right. We needed to get to those first. So we had that reactionary piece that we dealt with, and now we have to start with that larger planning piece of how those, you know, equipment over time has to be replaced. And I think with documentation on Mr. Metric's part and your part, we can get there.
Yeah.
I don't know that at either price point, John, and you'll talk to us about it, hopefully, that there's any difference. I would hope that there isn't. It's just a question of what's included in these scenario A and B. Am I right?
No, absolutely. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring an example of the equipment that we're talking about to request to amend the CIP. When we talk about the vest, you can use mine as an example, and I'll put this up in front of the camera to show everybody. Obviously, this is a bulletproof vest that has our outer carrier. This outer carrier was issued in August of 2018. So this outer carrier is new. However, the panels within were issued around the same time. So the panels will be good for 5 years. Now, when I first came here, I was obviously doing an assessment of equipment, whether it was radios, non-lethal weapons, lethal weapons, including the vest and the equipment that the officers had. I've had candid conversations with them. So when we had the conversations with the officers, I was under the impression from them, and rightfully so, it has nothing to do with them, I should have actually done a deeper dive on the actual vest panel date itself. But when I got here, the officers said that their vest carriers were probably about, when we were doing the CIP planning, probably about a year old at that time. They probably got it in November of 2017. And it was provided from Red Detailer out of Reading, Pennsylvania. Yeah. This is a high quality piece of equipment. It's tailor-made to the officers, their size. The panels within, some of the officers have point blank panels. However, when myself, your newest officers, and again, it's a growing period. Everybody knows through the first year, there's a lot of growing pains and adjustments that we're making since we now have a chief of police model in the borough in your police department. So with that in mind, myself and Officer Dutton's vest panels are good for 5 years. His will be good until 2023. So will mine. However, the officers that are veteran officers here, Officer Lynn, Vernaccio, Sean McCabe, and Matt Belfi, their vests were issued in January of 2014. So their shelf life as of January 2031 has expired. So with that in mind, when I actually asked the officers about the outer carriers, and they told me they were issued probably around November, October of 2017, automatically I thought the vest panels probably came with that. It turned out that these outer carriers were issued after the vest panels were in January of 2014, because this was something that the officers were allowed to purchase, and rightfully so. It's a great piece of equipment. So now, Red Detailer has been absorbed by Galls out of Texas. Red Detailer once operating out of Reading. They've been absorbed by Galls. We have decided to go in another direction with uniform vending from McDonald's Uniform on Dornell Road in Northeast Philadelphia, which has given us high quality products at better pricing and better service. So with that in mind, we are now ordering these, all right, according to the packages. Now, under no set circumstances does either scenario jeopardize the safety of the officers.
Thank you.
The most important part is they would get the panels. The decision between A and B is basically the purchase of these. And if I could continue, the officers, even though they have these, and they're about 18 months old right now at this point, some of them have become frayed and worn underneath. And I'd just like to show everybody. When you take these wrap around your body and they hold you down, and hold you down to your belt line, and it gives you the level of protection that's needed according to the sizing. And when you pull these over, this straps around your belt going around the front. You have a front panel and you have a back panel. This carrier is provided by a company called U.S. Armor, right? The panels that we're ordering now will be through U.S. Armor. And so the 4 officers will have U.S. Armor panels in addition to my U.S. Armor panels. In addition to the carrier, the only officer that would have point blank panels would be Dan Dutton, because they were provided by McDonald Uniform. However, we were able to get U.S. Armor through our vendor to actually tailor make one of these vests to Officer Dutton's point blank panels, which is very good. So this is basically what we're dealing with. This is what we're looking at. Obviously, I'm preaching to the choir when I say this is a necessary piece of equipment. It's non-negotiable. It's just an issue of whatever scenario we want to go with. So,
if I could ask you a question, you said that there was it wears. So you're saying that the officers, the vests that were issued in, what did you say, 17 are starting to fray? Or is there no?
A lot of times, it's not so much the panels themselves that will get frayed. Like, for instance, take this. When they start to get frayed here, that's usually a concern. Okay, but they're not.
I thought you meant, okay, sorry.
They're okay, but this is actually what I'm talking about with the outer carrier. They start to, like, for instance.
You were thinking that.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking.
When they start getting frayed, for instance, Officer Vernaccio, his vest inside, his outer carrier right under here is starting to get worn, torn, and frayed, as well as back here a little bit. Now, with that in mind, when you order new vest panels, they always come with undergarment carriers. It's part of the vest panel purchase. But this is in addition to that. So our decision that we have to make as a group in public safety is whether we are going to go with the new carriers. Okay, we have to order one for Dan. That's a must. Because we have to have a universal standard. Once we order one for Dan, all of us will have the same standard uniform appearance in terms of ballistic protection. So with the outer carrier. The only decision that we would have to make was, as a committee, to move through F&A and then ultimately through council for an approval, is whatever we're going to go with, B or A. So basically, B does not include these new carriers, these outer carriers, for the 4 veteran officers.
So when they were purchased, I guess the question is there no replacement guarantee? There's no understanding of the provider who provides these, where it starts to fray, if part of it is only a year old, what's the replacement? What's their warranty? What's the replacement policy?
If we had issues with being frayed ahead of time, ahead of 5 years or something like that, like right now, what happened was when I talked to Officer Vernaccio, he brought it to my attention that his panels were going to expire in January of 2019. So I immediately defaulted to the other 3 and said, okay, well, aside from me and Dan, it must be the same. So we checked out, we confirmed that, and in fact that is the case. They all expire January 2019. Now that doesn't mean on February 1st it loses ballistic protection. That's not the point. They still provide that threat level that's needed, that protection. However, it's now in our best interest to move forward as soon as possible to replace the vest because we want the officers to be safe.
John, what's the timeline? So from this moment, from today, the decision, whatever decision we make in this moment, tell me what it looks like. So we go back, we have the 20th, we'll send it over to F&A and Sean will review, I guess, the purchasing information and we'll get as much information back and then we'll see what Finance Administration has to recommend after our recommendation and then tell me what that timeline looks like from when it's approved.
Very easy. For instance, the sizing has already been done for all the officers. The order is already ready to go. We already have the estimation. We didn't get a purchase order in play, but I have the estimate numbers, which I provided via email to the committee. So with that in mind, once it's approved by council on Wednesday, February the 20th, it's basically a 4 to 6 week period that we have this in our possession. So McDonald's uniform is very good. They're very quick. There is usually a delay on ordering ballistic panels because these are crafted.
Yeah.
These are, there is an order period, obviously. But overall, ultimately, we're looking at a 4 to 6 week delivery period for the officers. And obviously, they're wearable immediately.
Right, so I guess going forward, Sean and Chief Gallagher, I won't be here, but the rest of you will. I guess in, sometime around year 4, everybody, we have to go back and have that conversation about what if vest expires, panels expiring, and what that looks like from the financial piece. And of course, it's 4 to 6 weeks. So, obviously, better to know in November. We have to make this purchase in January, right? So the order of operations, so that we're all clear, how we're going to spend those dollars going forward.
So two of the 6, Gigi, will have to be replaced in 2023. That will be myself and Officer Dutton. And then the remaining 4 will have to be replaced in 2024.
Sure. Right. So you heard that. Okay. Just to be clear, I just want to make sure.
And this is a piece of equipment that the officers wear whenever they're on duty.
Yes.
Whenever they're on duty. The officers have to wear this regardless of their assignment. If they're on duty, it doesn't matter whether they're on bike patrol. It doesn't matter whether they're in a car, they're walking a foot beat. It's a must-have for officers.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's go. Rob, any questions here?
Well, so I guess it's a bigger question that I think Gigi's asking. Do you see this as the kind of last piece of equipment that we need to kind of work into the CIP? I mean, because you did a fairly comprehensive.
Yeah, we did a very
Yeah.
good comprehensive CIP. This is just kind of an unforeseen circumstance. I would like to think that this request to amend the CIP would probably be the only exception, Rob. However, at the same time, again, I think we have to default back to this being my first year. I'm pulling out Band-Aids all over the place.
Right.
So there are things that we're going to find that are going to be unforeseen. Like, for instance, myself and the mayor, we've had this discussion. Everybody's been informed that we now have this $22,000 piece of equipment coming to us as a grant from the Auto Theft Prevention Authority, which are now agreeing to partner with Narberth to help, prevent auto theft. With that in mind, one of the discussions that the mayor and I had is, in order to put this in place and institute it, we have to make sure that we have a policy, and we want to make sure that that policy's out there ahead of time. Now, the only other thing that I would think of that we would have, that are unforeseen expenses would be things like this that are granted to us, or things like this that we receive in equipment from the CIP. There may be installation costs. Like, the CIP is about as comprehensive as it can be in terms of cost, and I try to actually include installation for different pieces of equipment for Havas. So there's a lot that baked into that pie back in November when we prepared that CIP. But however, this is just unforeseen. Again, it has nothing to do with the officers. What I should have did was check the panels, and I should have did that when I was checking the outer carrier.
We understand. We get it. We totally get it.
Nobody's perfect.
And our concern is, well, not our concern, but the concern overall, right? This is the taxpayers' dollars. I don't know if there's anybody in the borough who would say, like, oh, well, this is too expensive, we're not going to purchase this. But what I do need everybody to understand is that going down the road, that CIP, it kind of pushes back, right? So it pushes back some other dollars further out in the CIP, and that's what you all have to know, is that some of those things may have to be pushed out, as opposed to, I think we had a 5-year projection or a 3-year projection. It may have to go out a little bit longer. And that's, and that depends on taxes, and it depends on grants, and it depends on a lot of other things. But we all have to have that understanding that these, we can't just make money appear. The borough has, as we always talk about, we need some dollars in reserve to make those kinds of better decisions for everybody. So, Fran, do you have a comment on this?
No, I don't.
I'll ask my question. Sean?
We'll dive into a little more details on how the dollars get shuffled around in the CIP, but there was $35,000 allocated in year 2019-2020 for police technology and equipment. And so far, with the MDT purchasing and with this factored in, we're at somewhere in the range of $15,000 to $16,000 spent. So there's more work to be done in this year's iteration of the capital improvement plan. We have $1.6 million of improvements teed up, ready to go this year. We've already bought a fire engine, so we're down to $1.1 million. We have an expensive roof project to do, which will take us down to $600,000. Our Narberth Avenue Bridge right-of-way acquisition estimates came in below budget.
Oh, good.
Nice.
So we might save about $75,000 there, but there's still a lot of variables in what we're doing right now in this moment in this year. And that is going to get baked in, if it doesn't get done, into the next, it's going to roll over into the next year's cycle. And
Sure.
with John and Ed and the whole team in place now, I think we're just going to improve upon our planning efforts, and we'll know with foresight when panels are expiring, when MDTs go out of business, when fleet gets replaced, and we're going to plan that out over a long horizon to limit the surprises.
Right. Matt, anything?
Nothing.
Mayor, anything?
No, nothing further.
So I think what we'll do, if it's okay with the committee, we'll, Sean, do you have any either recommendation here for us, either for either scenario?
I would trust that the chief has presented them as equal. My preference would go with A. I'm usually like...
That's what I'm asking, what your preference is. Does that meet your needs and your desires, Chief Gallagher?
Yes.
Yes. Cindy, yes? Yes. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes. Anyone have an objection to spending the $6,791?
Nope.
No. So we will move that forward. If you'll send that over to Finance and Administration and let them know what our recommendation is so that we can amend the CIP. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it to our attention, and thank you for it's important information we need to have and the public needs to have going forward for the equipment and the actual costs and development of an independent police force. One of the things I wanted to just quickly touch on, because the chief brought it up, the mayor and I and Mr. Metrick had a conversation a couple of Mondays ago regarding sort of an order of operation, how purchases get made, and that when we have the opportunity to I guess take advantage of grants or have equipment gifted to us, and what that really means going forward, and the impact of maintaining that equipment, whether that's hardware, software, somebody from the outside. But what it really is about, for me, from my side, was the storing of this information and equipment we're getting from the tag reader. We did not have a policy around that. I haven't seen one yet, but I'm sure we're working on it. And what it is that order of operations. So when we get a piece of equipment, we prefer it to be the other way around, right? So we prefer it to be like, we have a policy, we're seeking this, and we have a little more data in front of us to drive the decision whether we need this piece of equipment and what the outlay looks like over time. So that was part of our conversation. I don't think anybody objected. Mr. Metrick is putting those pieces together, both in Mr. Harmon's department and across the board. So that's all being worked on. So that's the good news. Next up, what do we have? Parking enforcement system. Anyone want to talk about that? Oh, that's you. Here's Matt, everybody.
So we are nearing the 3-year termination point of our current parking enforcement software. That was that was my first project that I worked on in my tenure here. And while the spirit was great, understanding that we needed to migrate from paper issued tickets to a digital issuing system, quickly figured out that it wasn't the right fit for the borough. That decision was made prior to my tenure. We made it work. One of the missing links to it was that the system, while it's designed, it works really well for educational type situations where the administration can hold students diplomas if they don't pay their tickets. We don't have that luxury as a municipality. And so we have to communicate directly to the courts. That's our mechanism to enforce non-payment. The current system was unable, I've got an email chain, the length of the Mississippi River showing trying to get them to crack this nut, and they just couldn't do it. And so it got to the point where I was ready to cut bait. We needed to find a better solution. And one of the recurring themes that Sean and I have focused on in our tenure is finding service providers that are the right fit for the borough. Oftentimes that has not been the case, and we struggle with what I called small potato syndrome. We're such a small municipality that it's very difficult for us to get really good professional service for our needs. It's a recurring theme. So through the knowing that the current system was expiring the end of March, beginning of April. About 2 months ago, I started looking at other systems and released the
I don't know what it was. I was like, where's it coming from?
and found a firm out of Fort Washington, and their specialty is Pennsylvania municipalities. They have cracked that nut. They were one of the first to directly communicate with the AOPC, which is the state legal mechanism for which all state citations are issued. They've done it. They have it. They've got direct working relationships with the state. They're in Fort Washington. They're local. They understand it, and this is their niche, working with municipalities. We had a full-day training session yesterday. Oh my gosh, right? It was just tons of information, super easy to use. It's the antithesis of our current system. I say all of that to say we are looking to roll this out probably around April 1st. It's going to look different in the field. It's going to be a 1-unit system versus a 2-unit system. I'm not going to get into the weeds of the nuts and bolts of it. If you're interested in that, I'd be happy to show you the devices. But the key takeaway is that what we're learning is it's still going to take us time to connect to the state. We're learning a lot because they understand it, they know it, and now we know what we need to do. And we can't issue state citations directly until the state verifies all of our ordinances to make sure that those ordinances are on our books. That's the process that we're at now, right? So Officer Lynn has been working with me in the weeds and looking at our ordinances and identifying all of our parking legislation, and that will define what we can issue state citations for. We will be able to roll this out starting April 1st. It's going to operate as our current system right now because we don't have that connection yet. We have the state has to sign off. Yes, your laws say that you can do this. Everything is good. That's underway. That takes about 2 months to do, state time-wise, right? Once that happens, that's just turn on the switch, and then it's going to be on, and all of the unpaid parking tickets will be going to the court.
Is it retroactive?
We haven't made that decision yet. I don't think so. There's a statute saying that district justices can only look at parking tickets that are 30 days old, and so by the time we get into it, it's going to be cost prohibitive for us to build that in. It's just going to be turn the switch on as of this date. All those not paid after 10 days.
That's this and that's that, and we're done.
Yeah.
Our legislation says any parking ticket not paid after 10 days are to go to the court. We're taking a literal interpretation.
Good.
We will be sending citations that are after 10 days not paid, going to the court.
Thank you. May I ask you, and I'm sure you've looked at this, but we have this larger piece of parking in the borough and how this, any system that we would enact over the larger parking issues, hopefully we'll address that this year, that zones and 2 hours and stickers and no stickers and green grass grows all around, how this is going to play into or work with or be able to,
so the system,
I'm sure that's on your radar, but talk to us a little bit about that.
Great, thank you. One of the reasons that this system was selected was that it is everything. It can be everything, and they've proven it.
You heard him say it. It's going to be everything.
It can be. I said it can be everything. What the challenge is that we need to talk internally and at the council level about how we want to take parking recommendations from the parking study and implement that.
Yeah.
We don't have that ability to redo the parking system because it's defined by our ordinances.
Yeah, right.
So we're bound by the ordinance, right? Yes, that system, it has a permit portal. He showed it to us the last 20 minutes yesterday. Oh my goodness, that's what we need to be doing. That is the way that we need to manage our parking. But we can't turn that on until we have first a staff level understanding of how we want to manage parking, look at the parking study to incorporate those suggestions, the zones, those sorts of things, redefining the zones, costs, all of those things. This system can handle all of it. He's just like, I'm not in a position to tell you what you have to do. You have to decide how you want to do it, but the answer is yes, we can do that. So that's, talk about phasing. First thing we're going to be doing is rolling it out, getting it up and running. Second thing we're working on is getting it connected to the state. Third thing will be, okay, we need to start looking at the parking zones, look at the parking study recommendations, and then how do we go to phase 3, incorporate that into the system. I've been dabbling in it, have kind of a structured approach to it, rolling it out via zones. I like the 3-zone idea, current parking zones and those sorts of things.
Can I ask you what the cost of this,
Yeah, so I don't have
compared to what we
Yeah,
spent?
sure.
Thanks.
I don't have it. I can't recite the cost. I'd be happy to forward you
Yeah.
the analysis
If you
that I
send it to
did.
me,
If you're
that'd be
into the
great.
weeds, what I did, I looked at current costs, everything that it has
Yeah.
cost us for the current system. And then what I did, I looked at everything that the new system is current costs, as well as the savings of getting those unpaid citations dealt with. And it's actually saving us money going to this system.
Great.
The cost-wise implementing it, we made a decision when we signed the contract to smooth the upfront kind of quote capital cost, the startup costs over the 3-year period, so that it's going to spend a little more money annually. So you're going to see, we're going to be over budget police software subscription fees this year, because instead of like we did with T2 when we paid half of the price up front for the install, we took that half and we smoothed it out over 3 years.
Right.
We decided to do it that way because we think we're going to do better at least in the first 3 to 4 months before behaviors change in terms of violations and getting things back in the court. We actually think long-term ticket revenue is going to go down, compliance is going to go up, and you're going to see just a little bit more money on the meter revenue, because a quarter is a lot less than $15. So.
And there's
We
a-
like that.
and
We
there's-
like
And
compliance.
there's a cost savings to integrating the permitting part of it also. That's something that has been outside of our current parking system. Residential parking permits are not integrated into the current parking system.
Right,
Whereas this one,
right.
if we integrate parking permits, all those who apply for a permit go through this system and it's logged automatically. You
Great.
don't necessarily have to have that
Great,
permit.
thank you, Cindy. Sorry, everybody. That's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rob, anything?
So is that going to go to FNA? What's the next step for this?
Well, this was already,
Or it's already been?
yeah, it's already been, yeah, that's already
It's staff
been.
level.
Right.
It's
Okay.
integrating it into our daily operations.
Right.
Okay.
If you're interested in looking at the nuts and bolts of it, I'd be happy to show you the software. and
We'll
see
get
how
there.
it
I guess
works.
everybody's going to have a tutorial.
I'm sure a question will come up later in the year. We've budgeted
Yeah.
whatever the number is, $7,000 for software for PD. Why are we at $9,000?
Right.
And I'll have to explain
Right.
why that's the
Right.
case. We
Right.
made this decision.
So you see, and in my time here, and Mr. Mitchell can tell you, that the creep starts, right? So it's 2,600 on bikes, it's 6,000 here, it's another 3,000 there. So when I said last year, stop spending money, I really meant it, because we spend a lot in order to make sure that our professional services and the equipment and the information the borough needs to operate is paid for and provided. But there comes a point where, if anybody looked at the finances for January, that the bottom line at the end of January, $48,000 was in the account. And the reality, I think, right? Something like that. I might have the number wrong. But it's not, we have to be conscious. And we have to be really aware of what we're spending as that we creep. We tend to creep. All organizations do. But we have to be a little bit careful about how much creep there is in the first, at least, quarter of the year. And then we can hopefully ride the wave the rest of the year and be fair.
May I add something?
Please.
To that point, I know my decision-making process, you can apply that to the streetlight project that you saw last week, was that while it might be costing unbudgeted dollars now, I always look through the lens of investment and how can this be benefiting the borough in a 3 to 5 year window. While the parking system will cost a little more in the 3 years, from year 4 onward, it's going to save the borough money.
Right.
I should say we're not going to pay as much, not necessarily save, but it's going to be an investment. It's an investment, it's a right fit, it's a full solution. Same with the lights, it's a right fit, it's a full solution, and it will pay us dividends.
And Matt, could you, maybe the Public Safety Committee and the public doesn't know, maybe you could lend some information about the option that it gives us for traffic citations
Thank
as
you,
well?
I was going to talk about that as well. So yesterday's, I've been gerbil wheeling about it all night and this morning. just learning from a professional who that's their business. They came in and gave us a full day training yesterday, and I learned so much from him, not just how the software works, but how the system works, the big state system. Parking is only through your local ordinance. Everything else goes, was it chapter 75?
For what, Pennsylvania Motor Vehicle Code?
Yeah, is it chapter 75?
It's 75, yeah.
Yeah, so chapter 75. Those are all of the other things, right? And those have to be issued via state citation, right? So this system has an add-on that you can incorporate state citations. So officers will be able to use the same handheld. It's a different paper roll. It's pre-formatted, but it will print out a state citation and automatically submit it electronically to the state, just like the unpaid parking tickets. So we are exploring that as well, which would enable chiefs, officers, the officers in the police department to issue state citations instantaneously instead of handwriting them, carbon copy, mailing them to the courts.
And that's labor intensive, just to let everybody know, when we issue traffic citations to motorists, we have to deliver those copies to the court. We have to file the other yellow copies. So this saves a lot of labor intensive hours because this is automatic. So officers will be able to use one of the two devices that are issued to us to issue citations like that. And it's such a streamlined process.
And wait, there's more. Not only that, this software has the ability, they have a third add-on for code enforcement. Which is they haven't cracked the nut with the state allowing them to issue direct filing for non-traffic citations.
Yeah,
He said they have it all done. They're waiting for the state to say, yeah, okay, we're going to do that. They're ready for it, but they still have the system. It's still electronic. I know a few local municipalities are using it for that as well.
That sounds like a software update, just a matter of a software to be able to transfer.
Yeah,
Well, this is Pennsylvania,
it's
and you know.
it's somebody sitting
time.
it's somebody sitting at AOPC saying,
Yep.
yeah, I think I'll do that.
Okay.
Checkbox.
But that will consolidate a lot of effort.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And so the shelf life of this thing, you think, is 5 years before we'll need a major upgrade, or longer?
What really attracted me to this software is that it is a lot more. It's more nimble. It's not as proprietary as the current system.
Right.
Until
It's-
Google buys them.
Which could happen. That's how nimble it is. It's using off-the-shelf ideas, using Excel spreadsheets, baking it in. You can see the interaction. Everything's exportable, importable. It's pretty slick.
So with code enforcement, eventually, perhaps, our code enforcement officer will be able to use the same technology.
The option is there.
Okay.
I am not going to say it's going to be the right fit for us.
I see.
But they do have that. I'd like to get the parking element rolled out and interacting with it, see
Try it on percents.
what the shortcomings are.
Gotcha.
Every system has shortcomings. There
Of course.
is no perfect system.
Yeah,
This is the
Of
closest we've gotten. I'm excited to roll it out. I don't want to sell the farm on all of the bells and whistles without proof of concept first.
Got it. Anybody have any other questions regarding what Matt has presented? No, Matt, we
Thank
look
you.
forward to it. Thank you
As
so
do
much
I.
for it. Thank you. The last piece we have here, and we have just a few minutes because we're over 9 o'clock, law enforcement evaluation report, discussion, and goal setting. So I think this goes back to, if I've got it right, the matrix report and some of the information regarding reviews. I know that, I believe, Chief Gallagher has conducted reviews of the officers and quite possibly of the parking authority. And that the mayor has probably interacted with some of that, but I think the piece that we're looking for is to have that conversation, and clearly next month, because we're out of time, but we'll start next month with this one if Mr. Metric allows us. The conversation about the matrix report and mixing some of those hurdles, right? So some of those pieces that were immediate or secondary, and then there were some that were tertiary. So I think if we can have a conversation in March about a blend of those things, of putting together those goals and how long we think each one presumably would take to accomplish, and what that looks like, and the dollars needed, and maybe making some predictions going forward, so that we're all on a same page going forward, knowing what the goals are. That's that. Mr. Metrick, anything?
No, nothing additional to add. I just think that this report gives us a nice pathway, a nice set of stepping stones to move forward and to give John support for things that, and the mayor's support for changes they're making in the police department to meet council's expectations and the investment that we made in investigating what the department's needs. So I think that bringing our focus and attention to the document is a good idea.
Right. Mr. Weston?
Nothing.
Mayor?
Nothing.
Rob, nothing?
Nothing.
Chief?
No, thank you.
Mr. Nixon?
No.
Thank you, Lavelle. Thank you so much. We are adjourned. I appreciate your time and effort. Any questions, obviously, come forward with them. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.